know we've been doing a small series here on private sector organizations working in the weather space. Really, this is linked to the awards that Verisian did at the end of last year. And we were delighted that Meteoblue came along, and they rightly and deservedly won the award for best integration of hydromet into infrastructural smart cities. You'll see from this conversation that that is a very fitting award for what they do. And it's a pleasure here to be joined by Nico Bader, who is the team lead for city climate at Meteoblue. Obviously, I'll let Nico introduce himself and Meteoblue in a bit more detail, but just want to say thanks for being here. And please, take this next 20 minutes or so as a chance to really get to know Meteoblue. We've known them a long time. They're really the best at what they do. And this is a chance for us to dive into that. So, Nico, thanks for coming. Do you mind giving us a little overview of just a quick, who is Meteoblue and introduce yourself, please? That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for this interview, Luke, and thanks for the whole team of Verisian for the prize, for the award. Was very good for us since we are also a very small team at Meteoblue that we won this prize, which shows that we are doing probably a good work and that we can help with our services at Meteoblue. And in general, Meteoblue is founded in 2006 as a spin-off of the University of Basel in Switzerland, and we are still based in Basel. So we have our main office there in the city center of Basel. And yeah, we started as a very small startup with providing weather forecasts, a global weather forecast. And we scaled our data sets and we implemented new data sets, environmental data sets, climate data sets, and so on. Our main business, and it's still our main business, is selling weather and climate data, environmental data to B2B business. So to companies in different sectors worldwide in different industries. So our biggest sector is still agriculture. So we have our main key accounts and our main customer. So our largest customer base is in the agriculture sector. But we are also working in renewable energy sector, in the transportation sector, aviation, which is a smaller percentage, but we are also working with them. So different segments. And in 2019, or even earlier, 2018, our former CEO had the idea that we could also address cities because the main population of the world, so more than 50% of the world's population live in cities. So, and with a normal weather forecast, you work on a level which is too coarse to cover the microclimates in cities. So you lose more or less more than 50% of the world's population, and you cannot provide them a very individual forecast in cities. And this was the main idea of our city climate products, to monitor the urban climate, so the microclimatic situations in the city with sensors, so with a measurement network, providing models based on a measurement network in real time. Today, we are also capable of providing a forecast in cities so that we can also provide a very high detailed forecast in cities. And that's how developed from a scientific project at the beginning in the city of Zurich to a worldwide used service from Meteoblue. But we are still a very small segment at Meteoblue, but we develop more and more. And yeah, let's hope that we can
Nice.
also spread a bit our solutions together with you, with the team of Verisian.
Definitely, definitely. No, it's. I think it's so fascinating when you start diving into the sheer amount of sectors that just need weather data. More and more are realizing, I think, that it's and the fact that cities is a newer thing for you, but it makes perfect sense. But it'd be good to know kind of what exactly are you providing for cities? What are the main things that your clients are looking for in that space?
Yeah. So our solution is based on four different phases. So the first stage is like measurement, so measuring the urban climate. And I mentioned it already before. So measuring with a local measurement network, with an IoT measurement network. So there are, for example, the guys from Orbisense who also won another award last year. So they built, for example, these small measurement devices, IoT devices, for cities to measure microclimate in cities. So on a street scale between the buildings, that you get insights at the beginnings with ground truth measurement stations. What are the microclimates in cities look like for wind, because you have street channel effects, for temperature, so measuring urban heat islands, precipitation differences over metropolitan areas, so especially in the tropics, this is of huge interest, but also air quality, which was a huge topic in the past, and it became a bit less prominent. Then everyone was talking about temperature and heat islands, and now in the last 1 or 2 years it became prominent again. And this is the idea of measuring in the first step the microclimate in the city, and then going to the second step and provide high resolution models based on the data, that you can also provide data between the measurements. So on a very high detail, we can model down to a 1 meter resolution, for example, heavy precipitation, so especially flooding events, wind simulations, temperature. And the important thing is also providing a forecast. So not only looking at real-time information so that you know how it's currently look like, but also looking into the future, up to a 7-day forecast, that you can see, okay, how is the weather developing in the next hours? Do we reach specific thresholds? Do we have to warn people? So heat warnings, flood warnings, maybe a storm warning if we have very high wind speeds in street channels. Yeah, up to the next day. So doing really the prevention of extreme weather. And then the third step is using this data, build long time series in cities that you can analyze, okay, where are the hotspots in my city? Where do we have to act? Testing, so really going into this adaptation step. So looking where can we act, how can we act? So doing like what if scenarios, simulate these different what if scenarios, and see, okay, if we do some facade greening, if we deseal an area, if we green this area, if we plant trees, what's the effect? So what do we expect in temperature reduction? Maybe reducing the effects of floodings. How can we reduce maybe air quality, or how can we improve the air quality by avoiding a lot of traffic through the city? So doing this adaptation strategy simulations, so seeing what could be in principle achieved. And in a fourth and last step, we also work a lot in the verification, so that we install individual sensors at individual locations and measure, okay, what is the effect of this adaptation strategy? So what can we measure now, before and after? So we had a microclimate before, microclimate afterwards, and what is at the end the effect? So because today we model a lot and we say, okay, it could be, maybe it might be, I don't know, there could be a change, but no one measures, okay, what is the benefit at the end? And also like the cost benefit ratio. So we spend a lot of money, and what is the benefit at the end, to also use this information for other cities and consult them better in what they could do and what's the microclimatic benefit at the end.
Wow. No, that's what I really like that you guys take those extra steps there. You know, steps 3 and 4. I think actually using the data you're collecting and the models, not only to alert for hazards and extreme weather, but also to actually guide adaptation strategies. I guess we see that oftentimes that's seen as a sort of independent project. They might use the data, but it's sort of another project, particularly then if you're going into disaster risk management and response as well. That's got to all feeds into that whole idea of adaptation, right? So that's fascinating. But yeah, I just want to touch on the kind of variables and hazards that you've mentioned some, but tying it into geography here, there must be such a huge variety of hazards, and every city, depending where they are, is going to have many different variables. How do you guys manage that? What hazards do you forecast for and cover? And how do you manage the kind of different geographies and everything else, climates?
Yeah. So Yeah, so on the one hand side, as a first step, we provide different kind of raw data, and I mentioned more or less all of these raw data already. It's
Mm.
like air temperature, wind speed, also flooding, air quality. I mentioned, and air quality is, um, yeah, there are plenty of variables in air quality, so you can model or measure like PM10, PM2.5,
Mm.
NO2, CO2, all kind of emissions you can expect in an urban environment. But what we discovered in the last year is also, okay, you can on the one hand side deliver this kind of raw data, what we do, but it's also important to help on the one hand side the stakeholders in the city, but also help the citizens in the city, because you can tell a person, okay, yeah, I have 30 degrees, 32 degrees Celsius outside, but what does this mean? Is this now
Mm.
high? And that's why we are also working. We started already working on this, and it will be also a work in the next weeks. But we are working now on these risk packages. So translating the raw data into a risk. Okay, what's the risk level of heat stress? And in the winter time, it's the same for frost stress. So if you think about road management during winter, so what's the level of frost stress during winter, and not telling people only like, okay, you can expect 31 degrees tomorrow, but you give them more like information like, okay, the risk for heat stress tomorrow
Mm.
is low, medium, high. You give them like just with green, yellow, red information, which is easy
Yeah.
to understand. Okay, tomorrow I can expect a very high heat stress, thermal stress. Maybe what's the risk of flooding? Because you can also tell a person, okay, yeah, in 2 hours there will be a thunderstorm crossing, and maybe the water level will be 20 centimeters on the street. But if you ask probably 95% of the citizens and tell them, okay, 20 centimeters, everyone would say, okay, what does this mean for me? Should I be scared, or is this low? Is this high? And that's why we try to also convert this raw data, which is also important, but we convert this raw data already in risk levels, hazard levels to um, yeah, help the stakeholders and the citizens a bit in telling them, okay, it's a low risk, it's a high risk, and or it's a red flag, and you should not go outside because the streets are flooded.
Yeah. So the actual like dissemination is so vital as well, isn't it? Actually get, in a way that is understood and easily accessible, especially depending where you're working. If you can be very remote, I suppose, and connectivity might not be great in certain places and everything. But where do you guys work? What continents do you work in?
So in principle, we work worldwide. So
Okay.
we are not restricted to any geographic zone. So we work. So as Meteoblue, we already work worldwide as a city climate team. So on a government basis, we work mainly in Europe currently. So yeah, I would say 80% of our customers are in Europe currently. In Europe, we are mainly distributed over Germany, Switzerland, Italy, also Estonia. So we also have a project in Estonia. Then we have a still ongoing project in Vancouver in Canada. So we also work in North America. We are starting very good discussions in the US with a partner in the US. We just now um, got a final okay for a project, a huge project in Brazil, in the city of Curitiba, in the state of Paraná. So this will be a huge project and the first project for us in South America. And
Wow.
then we also have smaller projects in yeah, the Middle East. But currently we are not really working in Africa and Asia. We would like to expand now to Australia because they just finished their summer there, so in the southern hemisphere. And they also had many heat waves in the last weeks. So yeah, this will be also our target in
Nice.
for the next southern hemisphere summer.
That's amazing. Wow. No, yeah. I mean, global works comes with its challenges, right? But it's
Yeah.
no, that's so. It'd be interesting to know how you guys work with cities, municipalities. Do you work directly with them? Do you work with integrators, platform providers, or any partners? I know you mentioned getting sensors in cities for verification and other reasons, but how is your working relationship? Are you sort of contracted directly by the cities, or what's the typical way it works?
Yeah, it depends. So we do both. So we have some customers, so direct customers, which is a city at the end.
Yeah,
We have, but we also work together with platform providers. So we are partnering with platform providers, resellers. But also on the other hand side, we are also partnering with hardware sensor providers because Meteoblue is a data provider. So we do not build our own hardware. So we do not build sensors.
yeah,
So we are partnering with sensor providers such as Orbisense. There are also other partners we are partnering with. So we can provide at the end a holistic solution because sometimes our data is enough for a city, so the cities use our data and they have probably an existing IT infrastructure, so a geoportal or GIS systems where they integrate our data or maybe they show it on their climate portal to the citizens. This sometimes works, so this is one way of working with them. But we are also working with partners providing dashboards because or platforms because they already have a very good customer base, and then they can
mm,
add value to their dashboard by using our data, by providing more environmental, weather, climate information, and more high resolution and detailed information. So sometimes our customer is our partner, and they work with the end customer, so with the city. So
yeah,
we have different approaches, and we are always searching for partners to widen our scope, to add value to also to our solutions. And yeah, so we are very
yeah,
open and also in the other direction with the sensor providers. So that we use the stations from them, that we can provide a measurement network to cities. And in this case, we do more let's say the consulting job, that we consult the city and tell them, okay, where to install the stations, where does it make sense to install a sensor to cover all the different local climate zones, the microclimates in the city.
yeah. That's interesting. I think I'd imagine that Meteoblue as a whole, broadly, obviously the experience in various sectors. I
Yeah.
guess when it comes to developing exact sort of products, data products for certain sectors within cities, that is a second nature almost, to Meteoblue. But what I was going to ask, we have a very big viewership here, and one of the areas of viewership we have is national weather services that many
Mhm.
times work closely with cities. A lot of the time they're expected to develop products, whether it's for mining, for aviation, for shipping. I know that's not specifically just about cities in this case, but I would imagine Meteoblue are in a position to be doing that kind of work and partnering with governments, not just the city, municipalities, but kind of broader. Because I suppose I'm speaking about scale here, right? If you're looking at working with whole states and countries, that's when the National Weather Services would sort of come into play. So I would imagine that the ability to work directly with the weather services and sort of bring the scale to a national level is a big possibility for Meteoblue, and I imagine it happens already.
Yeah, so of course that's one thing. So if you want to work on a national level, then you are um, uh, be careful because we do not want to compete with National Weather Service.
Yeah,
And this is also not our aim. We do not want to compete with National Weather Service because also if you talk about alerting and warnings, also on a city level, it's it's the job of the National Weather Service. So they are responsible for warnings and alertings in cities. So that's not our job, and
yeah,
we wouldn't be even allowed to do an official warning in cities. So it's more that we want to work close together with National Weather Service or add value on top of the services of the National Weather Service. So That's why we use, for example, weather warnings from National Weather Service, and they often, so like the administrative level of weather warnings from National Weather Service is maximum on a city scale, more on a county scale, state scale. And what we would like to do is providing our tools, our service on top of these warnings, and give individual information within the cities. And it's more like, we, let's say Meteoblue with our services, we aim more, or we would like to cover more the villages and cities and tell them individually what's happening in your village, in your city. So
Okay.
maybe which regions in the city are most affected from the heat wave. But the National Weather Service is working on a country scale, and they
Yeah.
provide the weather warnings on within the country. And then if there's a weather warning for heat wave, for example, for a region, then cities can use our tool and look in more detail, okay, what's happening in my city, in the individual quarters of the city. So this is
Wow. Okay.
our idea how we can collaborate with National Weather Service. So we are using their information and we add value for the cities, which is not
Yeah.
at the end a warning, but it helps them to understand the warning in more detail, or maybe also about a flood warning. Because if you say, okay, in let's say in the city of Los Angeles, there is a flood warning for tomorrow, but Los Angeles is very huge. So you should know where in Los Angeles the flood will come. And we give this more detailed information to
Got
the
it.
city of Los Angeles. So this
Yeah.
is
Sorry, Nico, I've just lost you for a second there. Can you hear me?
now I can hear you again.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I just lost you for the last sort of
Yeah.
10 seconds there. Yeah, if you can
Yeah.
hear me now.
Yeah. Now I
You're
can
good.
hear you again. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. No, that's really interesting. Being able to work at the village level. I mean, that's you can see that being very useful. There's going to be levels of vulnerability across the national level, and being able to home in on exact locations is really good. Well, look,
Yeah.
that's really good, Nico. Summary. Thank you so much. Last thing from me, and then anything else you'd like to add would be, um, if those are interested in starting a process with you guys, getting to know Meteoblue a bit better, what's the best place to start? Obviously they can get in touch with you, but how should they go about pursuing working with Meteoblue?
So, so the best thing to start with Meteoblue is on the one hand. So what we also suggest for cities, that we can always start with very small pilot projects. So just come to Meteoblue with a very small idea of what you would like to do. It's also, I mentioned many things about measurement network modeling, adaptation simulation, and so on. I mean, of course, the city can do everything with us, but we are always open to start with a very small idea and think from this idea together with the city. Okay, how can we start from this idea with a very small pilot project? And we are always open to discuss this together with the city to find a way together. Because I mean, we have these 4 phases, but it's not the idea that we try to convince the city for doing these 4 phases with us. It's more we bring ideas, the city can bring ideas, and then we search how we can work maybe on a small pilot project together and start from this. Because it's also often about, you have to start small and convincing also stakeholders and citizens, and ask them, okay, is it helpful for us? Is it helpful for you? Can you work with the data? Do you understand the data? It's at the beginning starting very small with something easy to understand, and then you can start from this process. or start from this point with a process of, yeah, widen your scope, and think about larger projects.
Got
But
it.
yeah, we are very open. So whenever there's an idea of a city, of a village, just contact us and we can think together how we can, yeah, bring this to a small project and to something helpful for citizens and the stakeholders in the city.
That's great. Fantastic. Well, and Nico, thank you very much. If unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I think that's really great, and appreciate the overview there. Is there any final words before we wrap up?
Final words. Yeah, the final words are, this would be at least my first words, and when I would show you a presentation is that we are all dealing with the climate change, and especially cities. They will feel the climate change in the future, and they already feel the climate change the most. And yeah, we
Yeah,
try and we would like to change this and help cities with our tools. And we are open for new projects, open to, yeah, explore other countries, other cities, in other continents. And yeah, let's see what we can do starting from the Virgin network.
perfect. Thank you, Nico. Again, congratulations on the award. Well deserved, and appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.